Today we are going to be going over the 8 parts of speech. This is an introductory lesson, and so I'm not diving deep into the 8 parts of speech. This is more to get you associated with what those 8 parts of speech are. Okay, so we always like to start off our lessons by answering the question, who cares? Why are we even learning this? When, Ms. Shepherd, will I ever use this in my real life? Well, I'm going to get this out of the way right now because the answer to this question for English in general is you're going to use it, hopefully, every single day from now all the way through the rest of your life, because English is the language that we speak. Most of us, for the most part, speak it mainly. We might have other languages, but guess what? It still helps with other languages as well. But how we communicate with people is crucial. It's crucial to our success. It's crucial to how well we formulate relationships, friendships. It's going to be important for getting you a job. So the big picture answer is when will I ever use this in real life? Every day. Here's more specific. In English, individual words are the smallest elements that can give the biggest meaning. That means that by changing one word in a sentence, you can change the entire meaning of a sentence. Sometimes just by changing the way you say a word can change the entire meaning of a sentence. So the choice of words that you use can determine a lot. For example, it can determine if you get what you want. How many of you have ever gone to your parents, asked them for something, they don't even hesitate, and they say no right away? Most of us have. And the fault there is yours. You didn't ask well enough. You didn't even ask in a way that made them stop and think about your request. They just immediately said no. So you might want to brush it off as saying, oh, that's my parents. They're just so mean. They say no to everything. But really, you need to start taking some authority there. You need to start thinking, well, how could I have said that differently to at least make them think about my request? And really, that should be your goal here. That should be one of your goals is how can I make the words that come out of my mouth, the words that I write, make people stop and think about what I'm saying. So that's how one way it can help you. Another way when you're older is it's going to help you in those job interviews and hopefully landing the job that you want. Now it might be the difference between you getting an A and a B on a paper. It's going to help you have stronger friendships because you're going to be able to communicate with your friends more effectively and understand what you want and get that across to your friends. Also, you're going to be perceived. That means people are going to see you as more capable if you are someone who can communicate effectively, right? I want you guys to maybe even pause this video for a second and think about someone, famous or not, that cannot speak very well, that doesn't really get their point across very well. Now, this doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that their point isn't getting across. However, how do you perceive that person? Do you perceive them as highly intelligent? Or do you perceive them as maybe needing to study a bit more, maybe needing to practice a bit more? The answer is probably that you perceive them as someone who needs to study and practice a bit more, when in reality, they might be the smartest person in the world. And that's the same for you. If your grammar is off, if your words don't make sense, if you're not effectively communicating with people, they might see you, they might perceive you as less capable, less intelligent than you actually are. And so why not try to bolster ourselves up? Why not try to learn more and try to make ourselves sound just as good on the outside as we are on the inside? And that's your goal here. Okay, with every single grammar lesson. So we're going to be learning the 8 parts of speech. You can see them in the web here on the side. We have nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Again, we're not going deep into any of these. This is going to be a basic lesson, but each of these different parts of speech, we will be coming back to throughout the year and going into more depth with them. All right, so you do need to make sure that you have this basic understanding here today. So again, if there's anything that I say that you don't understand, you should be having a pen and paper next to you to take notes on this, especially write down those questions that you might have. All right, so let's get started. We put words together to communicate with each other. That's what language is. And thank God we have it, where we're able to tell each other what we need, what we want, what we see, what we perceive. And we call these combinations of words sentences, okay? And depending on the function of each word in a sentence, we can classify that word into 8 distinct categories, and those categories are the parts of speech. So if you don't already have your guided notes printed out or opened up in a separate tab, you need to go ahead and pause this video here and get those notes, because that is necessary for you as you're listening to this to fill those out. All right, so let's start with nouns. We all should remember from, I guess, probably first grade on, that a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. All right, so a person, Mrs. Shepherd, a place, school, a thing, a desk, okay? However, what most of us don't realize is that nouns can also be feelings: joy, sadness, happiness, jealousy, anger, friendship, honesty. These are all nouns that are things. They are definitely a thing, but they're not a thing that you can touch. Okay, we call those abstract nouns. All right, let's go on to our pronouns now. Pronouns take the place of a noun. Why? Why do we even have this? We already have nouns, Ms. Shepherd. Why do we need pronouns too? What are you trying to make our life insane, crazy? No, we have it so that you guys don't sound so repetitive. If you are telling a story about you and your best friend, I don't know, Tiffany, are you always going to say, so me and Tiffany went to the mall, and me and Tiffany bought new shoes, and me and Tiffany each got an ice cream, and me and Tiffany, are you going to keep saying that? No. Why? Because people are going to stop listening. All they're going to be thinking about is me and Tiffany. This girl's driving me nuts, telling me about her and Tiffany. What can you use instead? We went to the mall. We bought shoes, and Tiffany and I got ice cream. And that way you're kind of sounding a little bit more fluent, is what we say. So let's look at some examples. Oh, I'm sorry, my ex already showed up here. But we have Miss Shepherd. That's the noun. Miss Shepherd, instead of saying Miss Shepherd, I would say I, right? I. And then we have the noun, the class. Instead of saying the class, I can say you or you all, okay? Instead of talking to Elizabeth directly and just always talking about Elizabeth, I can instead say she. Instead of talking about Brandon all the time, and Brandon this and Brandon that, I can say he. Instead of saying Miss Shepherd and the class, because I'm including myself in there, I can say we. And instead of saying Canadians all the time, Canadians have good maple syrup and Canadians have great donuts, I can say they. Okay? All right, and these specific types of pronouns, by the way, are called subject pronouns, but you also have something called object pronouns. And I told you guys that we're going to be going in depth into more of these 8 different parts of speech later. Pronouns are one of those. So for now, what you're seeing here are called the subject pronouns, and that's because they often are seen as the subject of a sentence. The subject is who or what is doing the action. All right, next we have adjectives. Most of you guys can tell me adjectives describe nouns, and that's awesome. But what does that mean exactly? I like to tell my students to remember as comp. If you can remember as comp adjectives, and you can remember what each letter in as comp stands for, that's what adjectives are. Adjectives describe nouns. They describe your attitude or your opinion about a noun. It can describe the size of a noun, the color of a noun, the origin, where did it come from? Egyptian, American, Chinese. It can describe the material, cotton, paper, plastic, and it can describe the purpose of a noun. So let's take a look at these examples. What do you think, which one sounds more correct to you? We have in orange, we have the noun cup, and all of the words in front of it are the adjectives that are describing the cup. So which one do you think is correct? The green Chinese clay tea large old cup, or the old large green Chinese clay teacup? Which one do you guys think? Hopefully you said the second one, the old large green Chinese clay teacup. And a lot of the times, because we've been speaking English for so long, there's just a way that sounds right and there's a way that sounds wrong. So the first one probably just sounded wrong to you. And you guys are like, that's weird. That just sounds weird to say. Whereas the second one sounded right. Well, why? Why is it right? Again, we're coming back to as comp. Okay. This, if you can remember this is actually the order that adjectives should be written in. So we have our attitude or opinion. Old. That's an opinion. What I might see as old, you might not see as old, probably vice versa. Size, large. Green, color. Origin, where is it from? Chinese. Material, what's it made from? Clay. Purpose, what is it used for? Tea. And then finally cut. Okay, so because we followed as comp, if you remember that, you can remember what adjectives are. Might help you decide what one is in a sentence or choose one to put into a sentence. And it will also tell you the order that adjectives should be in as comp. All right, verbs. Now, when I ask you what a verb is, most of you will say it's an action. It's what you do. And you're absolutely right. Verbs show action. It is the action of a sentence. You have to have a verb to have a sentence, okay? However, verbs don't only show action. They can also link. We call these linking verbs. So they can link a subject with more information about that subject. So let's take a look at our two examples over here. Ken jumped higher than Tim. What is our action in that sentence? What's our verb? Jumped. Jumped is our action. Okay. And it is showing an action. It is something that you do. We have our subject, Ken, who's doing the action. He's jumping. Okay. But let's look down here. Lise is a famous artist. Where's the verb there? How many of you said famous? Maybe some of you. That's not a verb. Famous is an adjective describing the artist. Okay. It's an attitude. It's that A in as comp, right? The verb is. That is the verb, but it's not an action. It can't be seen as an action. We call this a state of being, okay? But I find that calling it that confuses a lot of students. So for now, you need to understand that is an example of a linking verb. It links the subject, Lise, with more information about her. She's an artist. It's linking more information. Lise is what? Lise is an artist. It's linking Lise with the artist, okay? So yes, of course, we can all pick out our actions: jumping, running, talking, speaking, learning, teaching, listening, right? But when it comes to the verb is, that can get a little tricky. Don't forget the different forms of is. I am a famous artist. You are a famous artist. Lise is a famous artist. We are famous artists. They are famous artists. So is doesn't always look like is. It's am, is, are, and then in the past, was and were. Future will be. Okay? But again, we're going to come back to learning more about verbs later on. Okay, so now that we know what a verb is, it's the action or linking verbs, we need to understand adverbs. Most people will tell me an adverb describes a verb, and you are correct, but that is not all it does. Okay, so yes, it describes actions. It describes verbs. For example, Annie quietly snuck past the guards. I'm going to ask you in a second to tell me where the verb is, where the adverb is in that sentence. However, adverbs can also describe adjectives, and they can describe other adverbs. Now, these last two here that I just said, these last two purposes of adverbs, those can get a little tricky for you guys. All right. So I understand that might be a little tricky. What I want you to really start doing, though, is thinking about what each word is doing in comparison to the rest of the words. So let's take a look at our examples here. Annie quietly snuck past the guards. Ask yourself, where's the action? The action, the verb is snuck. Is there a word that's describing how Annie snuck? Yeah, quietly. Okay. You will notice that a lot of adverbs, especially the ones that describe actions, will end in ly. It is important, however, that you don't just assume that all adverbs end in ly. That's not true. Okay, there are other words that end in ly that are not adverbs, and there are adverbs that don't end in ly. So be careful not to just look for a word and say, oh, it ends in ly, so it's an adverb. You still need to ask yourself, is this word describing an action? Is it describing an adjective? Is it describing an adverb? All right, so let's take a look at our second example. The sweater was really ugly. Okay, now, of course, we have really that ends in ly, but that doesn't automatically make it an adverb. Let's check out what's going on here. All right, we have the sweater, that's a noun, that's a thing. Was, I already told you, that's a linking verb. That's the past tense of is. Okay, really ugly. Ugly is an adjective. What is that adjective describing? That's an opinion, that's an attitude. What's it describing? The sweater. So that leaves only one word left, and that's really. And it is an adverb, but really is describing the adjective ugly. It's modifying it, it's changing it. It's not just saying it's ugly anymore, it's really ugly. All right, so let's take a look at the last one. Annie very quietly snuck past the guards. That's very similar to our first one, but I added in very. So obviously you guys are thinking, okay, well, obviously very and quietly are the adverbs here. Why did I add in very? That's to show you that adverbs can modify or can describe and change other adverbs. So there's quietly. How quietly? Very quietly. All right. Adverbs, you guys, they answer the question, how? How? All right. Here we are at our conjunctions. When you think of this, how many of you right now are sitting there saying, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Probably most of you. In my experience, that's the first thing I always hear. And then I ask, oh, great, you guys know that Schoolhouse Rock song. Well, tell me, what is the function of a conjunction? Nothing. Crickets. I love that you know the song, but you can't tell me what the function is. I'll tell you what the function is right now. A conjunction links words with other words. That's what a conjunction does. It links one parts of sentences for another. Okay? We have 3 types of conjunctions. The ones that you guys are going to be working with the most this year are your coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions. And there's a really easy way to remember these, and that's fanboys. Now you have to remember what each of the fanboys stand for. The F stands for, which is another way of saying because. The A stands for and. The N for nor. The B for but. The O for or. The Y for yet. And the S for so. And you can see examples here of them being used in a sentence. I have 1 dog and 3 lovebirds. I'm using the coordinating conjunction and to connect these 2 ideas together. Okay? Next, we have subordinating conjunctions. I didn't even list them here. There's a lot of them. And when we learn about the different types of sentences later on this year, you will be learning a song to help you remember these. Any one of my students, past, present, you go to them and you ask them to sing the subordinating conjunction song, and they definitely can. So you guys will get there as well. All right. And finally, we have correlative conjunctions. Correlative conjunctions are 2 words that connect ideas, but they have to correlate with each other. They can't be by themselves. Okay. Correlate means they go together. So you have both and. For example, both the office and the library are open. So we're connecting those 2 ideas, but we're using 2 words this time. Not only and but also. Kim is not only kind, but she is also smart. Either or, I can either bake cookies or buy a cake. Neither nor. Mark is neither a singer nor an actor. It's not neither or. It's neither nor. Okay? And then whether or. Mail is delivered whether it rains or snows. Okay? These are correlative conjunctions. All right. Very good. Prepositions. These ones tend to throw people off quite a bit. And it is one of the ways that you will always be able to tell a very well-studied English student because you'll use your prepositions correctly. Okay? Prepositions show a location or time between 2 nouns. Scratching your head wondering, well, what does that even mean? I like to tell my students to think of prepositions as anything an airplane can do to a cloud. This does not work 100% of the time for identifying every single preposition. Okay. However, it will work a lot of the time. So anything an airplane can do to a cloud. Think of something that an airplane can do to a cloud. Right now, come up with some ideas in your head. There are tons. Okay. But what can an airplane do to a cloud? Can it go through a cloud? Absolutely, it can go through a cloud. Can it go into a cloud? Yeah, it's pretty cool when it happens if you got the window seat. Yeah, it can go in a cloud. Can it go around a cloud? Absolutely. Can it go in between clouds? Yes, it may. Can it go behind a cloud? Yes. Can it be above a cloud? Yes. Can it go under a cloud? Yes. All right. These are all prepositions, those and many, many more. There are a few prepositions that are troublesome. A lot of you guys think, well, an airplane can't do that to a cloud, so it must not be a preposition. Remember that I told you that the airplane to a cloud thing will only work most of the time, not all of the time. So I want you guys to try to remember these troublesome prepositions. Of is a preposition. Technically, an airplane can be of a cloud. Okay, it kind of just means the same as in. Okay, about kind of means the same as around. Okay, at, for, from, and since. All right, so these can be troublesome. So do try to remember these and try to think of some examples of how we can use those prepositions in a sentence. Our last part of speech are interjections. I like to think of interjections as like our emojis, but our emojis that are in words. Okay, so interjections are words that express surprise or emotions, and they're very, very short words. I mean, usually I think most people agree 4 letters or less is usually a proper interjection. However, there are some longer ones, but for the most part, they're going to be pretty short words that express surprise or emotions. Okay, so think of your emojis, like work backwards here. Think of your emojis that you have and put it with a word. So you have the emoji that has the heart eyes. What could be an interjection that goes with that emoji? Maybe "Aw," right? Or how about the emoji that has its tongue sticking out and its eyes closed? What can be an interjection that goes with that? What about ugh, right? Something that shows disgust, all right? So these interjections usually go at the beginning of sentences. However, they can come really anywhere. We are going to be talking more about interjections when we talk about punctuation. Alrighty, guys, that is all I have for you today on parts of speech. Please make sure that you have filled out your notes and that you can come back to this video anytime and rewatch it to refresh yourselves. Thank you.